one of the things that to me defines a leader versus someone who's not a leader is someone who's willing to make choices, someone who's willing to execute on those choices, and then someone who's willing to be responsible for those choices. And in our society, we don't encourage people to make choices. We give the perception of choices and decisions, but we don't really encourage people to take the steps to make decisions.
Follow the Leader features dynamic women entrepreneurs and their journeys to becoming a success in business. This podcast is an inspirational space for entrepreneurs, future entrepreneurs, and thought leaders as they share their keys to success. I am Chanel Christoph Davis, the CEO and founding partner of the largest woman and minority-owned sales tax advisory practice in the country, Davis & Harmon, LLC. Today, our guest leader is Jessica Johnson Cope. She's the president and principal of Johnson Security Bureau, a third-generation family-owned security services firm based in New York City. Jessica is an amazing, dynamic leader. She's a member of Women Impacting Public Policy. She's also spoken on forums such as the White House Office of Engagement, as well as she was one of the featured speakers at Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses Alumni Summit, first annual summit that they held for all alumni from all over the country. Her firm is award-winning. Her company is award-winning. They won the Black Enterprise Family Business of the Year Award. Jessica, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chanel. Great to join you.
Yes. So I want to talk to you for so many reasons. I remember being at the Alumni Summit this year in February and seeing you on the stage, and your speech was amazing. You looked awesome. And I was like, I have got to get to know her.
Oh, thank you. You're too kind. I was just very fortunate to be able to share the stage with the likes of Warren Buffett and the likes of Mayor Bloomberg and Lloyd Blankfein from Goldman Sachs, as well as Sir Richard Branson. I'm just happy to be up there with all those giants in business.
Yeah, you were one of their, I guess, star alumni that they wanted to feature, like a success story. What has happened since you graduated from Goldman Sachs? What was some of the big successes that your company realized?
Well, we were very fortunate to be in the very first class of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program.
Oh, wow.
And we didn't really understand the breadth of the opportunity or what we were positioning ourselves to do in terms of growth. As a matter of fact, in the initial interview, when they asked me how much I wanted to grow the business, I said I'd be happy with an additional 20 jobs within a 5-year period. And we ended up creating 20 jobs within a six-month period after completing the program. So we've had significant growth. And part of it has been because we're here in New York.
Yes.
We were able to leverage a lot of relationships with other participants in the program, as well as with the advisors from the Goldman Sachs network. Additionally, it's just about having your eyes open to different opportunities. And for a while, we were kind of sleepwalking through business and didn't think about where we could grow. So the program opened our eyes to look at opportunity differently. And as a result of the timing and what we learned in the program, we put that action into work very quickly and changed the trajectory of our business. Because at the time when I applied, I said, all I need to do is to make it to 50 years in business after all my grandparents had sacrificed and all of the hard work that my father had invested. The least my brother and I could do was make sure that the company celebrated our 56th anniversary. And this month represents our 50th year in business. And this month represents 56 years since Johnson Security was founded in my grandparents' home.
Wow. So your company was founded 56 years ago. You currently have 160 employees. And your gross revenue annually is $4 million. Bravo.
And growing, yes.
And growing. So take us back, if you know the history, I'm sure you do, of where this all started. It started with your grandmother?
Well, it started with my grandparents. My grandparents are originally from the South. My grandfather was from Virginia and my grandmother was from North Carolina.
Okay.
And they realized that if they stayed in their hometowns, there weren't many opportunities for them to grow or to be successful. So they headed up north to the big city of New York City, and they met here. My grandmother was an educator in the New York City public school system, and my grandfather, he worked various jobs within the New York transportation system, and ultimately one of the jobs he held held was as a patrolman. And at some point, they realized it was nice to have civic jobs and to have union affiliation and to have great benefits, but they wanted more for themselves and more for their children and more for their community. And they saw entrepreneurship as a way to get them more. So they leveraged their experience from working for the city to start a business.
That's incredible. Like, I'm trying to think back to when that would have been, what year that would have been, and what type of America they would have been living in, and what type of gumption it would have taken for them to walk away from pretty amazing jobs, decent jobs for the time and the era, to say, we want more.
It was a very different America at the time. If you think, it was 1962, so that's during the Civil Rights era, before Dr. King was slayed, and it was a very different approach to Black businesses in this country, even up north. So they faced a lot of challenges. And then my grandfather passed away in 1975, and for a long time, my grandmother ran the business independently. Wow. So when I get frustrated or I get down on things not going my way, I think about all the challenges that my grandmother faced as a Black woman in business during the Civil Rights era, trying to raise her children. And I figure I have it a lot easier than she did. Mm-hmm. So I can't complain. But that also created a wonderful foundation on which I can now move the business forward.
What a great legacy. And it's amazing that you're able to carry on that legacy. So then your dad took over the business in what year?
My dad worked in state politics. He was an assemblyman for the New York City State Assembly. And then once he finished, he didn't want to run again because he was kind of turned off by some of the politics of working for the state. But he did take on an assignment as a political appointee until we got a different governor. And then he had to leave his position. And he came back to the company in 1983. And he and my grandmother worked together until 2003 when she passed away. So they were like a dynamic duo representing two different generations, two different perspectives, but bringing the best of public sector work and private sector work to fruition for the firm. So we grew in the government space after my father returned to the company in 1983.
So you were there and observing all of this growth with your father being in the business from that 83 to 2003 timeframe. You were actually around and watching this.
Yes, I was watching my grandmother and my father work together. I was watching them at times butt heads, but I was watching two very different leadership perspectives, and seeing how they could be different but both be successful. Right. And it kind of helped me to understand what I wanted my leadership style to be.
Okay. We'll get to that in a minute. I want to learn about your leadership style. So you took over the business in 2000. What year?
2008.
2008.
So amidst the financial crash, like within days actually of Bear Stearns going under, I took over the firm.
Wow, that's incredible. I'm in awe that you guys were able to, one, keep the business in the family for all those generations, work together as a family unit. That speaks a lot about your family's character, because a lot of people can't work with family that closely.
That's true. I think of the alternative, and because we are a very close family, even though at times our personalities may not play well together, having worked outside the business, I see how many of the challenges are not very different than working in corporations.
Absolutely.
Right? So regardless of where you work, you have to understand how to deal with people. As a person in leadership, you have to understand how to manage personalities. It's just that when you work with people in your family, you know a lot more about their personalities.
And you have to go home and eat Thanksgiving dinner.
Exactly.
Christmas dinner with them, yes. So what was the table like at your home in the evening? What did y'all talk about around the dinner table? Like, what was that family dinner like?
So we had an interesting family dynamic. My parents were divorced, but my parents lived directly across the street from one another. So almost every day growing up, I saw both my mother and my father.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandmother and my father lived in the same building. So everybody was in the same neighborhood. And most days, my grandmother would leave the office, cook dinner, and we would all eat together, with the exception of my mother. But before we left the dinner table, my grandmother always made sure that we called and made sure my mother had something to eat, because she realized that even though my mother wasn't a part of her married family any longer,
Yes.
she was still our mother, and that we always had to look out for her. And so my grandmother just fostered community,
That's beautiful.
from the dinner table to the business table to sending us out to go to school. So we had dinner together as a family most nights, and we would talk about dinner, we talk about politics, we talk about religions, all those things that you're not supposed to talk about.
Right.
Because those things were so important to the family, they were always woven into our dinner conversations.
Interesting. So you, I guess, went on and went to college. You left home and went to college. Did you go to college in the local New York City area, or did you go away?
I went away. So my first choice for college was the University of Pennsylvania, which is about 95 miles from here. And I was so ready to go, have my bags packed. And my mother said, well, if you go to Philly and you get a grade that your father doesn't like, he can be at your dorm by dinner. If you go to Chicago or to Northwestern, he'll have to get on a plane. So that'll buy you some time if you get in trouble. And so that, with a very gracious financial aid package, and knowing that I had family in the Chicago area, led me to attend college at Northwestern University, which was a bit removed from New York City, but it gave me a wonderful opportunity to be in a big city area, to have a wonderful support system of people that loved me, in my aunts and my cousins that lived in the area, and also give me the space to be independent enough to grow.
Yes.
Without being in the shadow of my dad or my grandmother or my mom at that either.
I'm sure everyone in your local area knew your family.
They were very well known. When I left for college, Dave Dinkins, who was the first African-American mayor of New York City, was in office. And our family had been strong supporters of his, because we had worked very closely with him in the community. So the family was extremely well known. And as a result, I felt like I was in their shadows.
Yeah, well, you couldn't have gotten away with anything if you'd have went to college in the local New York City area. They would have you'd had so many eyes on you.
This is very true. But even in Chicago, I had eyes on me, and you don't realize how small the world is until you get in trouble or you do something that you're not supposed to do. So I can think of times we used to travel to other cities in the Midwest, because Chicago is very centrally located. Mm-hmm. And one time we had traveled to Milwaukee to a basketball game, and one of the players on the team had noticed us. There weren't too many brown people our age walking around downtown Milwaukee that particular evening. And when I had come home for spring break, this basketball player mentioned to my dad, "Oh, I saw your daughter in Milwaukee."
Oh, wow. In Milwaukee.
In Milwaukee.
Thanks.
And my dad was like, "What were you doing in Milwaukee?" So I always had eyes on me, even when I went far away, what I thought was far away. So I could never get into too much trouble. But it kept me on my toes, and it kept me a relatively good kid.
It kept you focused.
Exactly.
Well, your family history is like a great, almost American history time capsule in a lot of ways, because your family came from the South. And they were part of that great migration, really, right? I mean, you have family that went to Chicago, which there's a huge migration of people from the South that went to Chicago, African Americans. And then there was also a big migration of people who went to New York City. So your family was like wrapped up in that whole story.
It's true, but it's funny because here in New York, the migration stories are so vast and diverse. One of my very good girlfriends, whom I met when I moved back to New York in 2005, she's first generation American, and she said, "Well, where are your people from?" I said, "Well, my people are from here." She's like, "No, where are they from? Like, where were your parents born?" I said, "Well, both of my parents were born in New York City." I said, "Well, where were your parents born?" She said, "Sicily." So, we think about one path of migration, mm-hmm. or one set of migration stories, but there's so many different ones. And here in New York, I've been exposed to migration stories of people coming from the South, migration stories of people coming from the Caribbean, people coming from Europe. And I think there's so much beauty and diversity.
Yes.
It's just that so often we don't take the time to understand what what that diverse story is or what that migration story is. So yes, my family has a very interesting one, but the longer I live, the further removed we are from their story. But we embrace the diversity of the community in which we were raised, where there are lots of Caribbean Americans, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans. African immigrants are an emerging group here in our community. And it's part of the beauty is my business is located in the same community where I was raised. So
that's phenomenal and unheard of. Really? I mean, you're in the community where you were raised. That's beautiful.
It's so often, we do well and we want to move to the suburbs, we want to get the big house, and we can do that. I'm not knocking anybody who did that, because I did that too. But I also realized that we all have a purpose and a calling in life, and part of my purpose is to reinvest in the place and in the people that supported me from the time that I was little. So regardless of how far I go in life or how large I get, my heart and my mind will still be focused in the South Bronx.
Yes, I think it's beautiful. I mean, everyone migrates away from home to go to college, to start their careers, but it's, I think, amazing that you were able to go back. Everybody wants to go back home. So you were able to do that in a great way and also contribute to your local economy in your community, and it's beautiful.
Most days it is. Sometimes it's not
she
easy.
Said most days it is.
Most days it is. I mean,
what are the challenges, Jessica? Because I'm making your story so glamorous and so, I don't know, idyllic and really like a beautiful movie. But what are the challenges of going back home? Tell me.
So, you have to balance, right? So the same people that you went to elementary school with or middle school with or high school with, they take different paths. So sometimes you come across somebody in a neighborhood and you look at them and they look at you. You're like, wow, you look familiar. How do I know you? And you're like, wow, we went to kindergarten together? Wow. Or like, you don't look like you did in kindergarten. Or like, what have you been through? Like, I have one friend. And we matriculated through elementary school together. Great guy. He was one of the smartest students in our class. And when I first took over the business, I saw him outside the bank. And so he was like, Jess, what's up? I was like, oh, I'm back in the neighborhood. He's like, I heard you running your business. I was like, yeah. He said, you got jobs? I said, I do. What do you do? He said, well, I just finished the federal bid. AKA, he just got out of jail. Well, prison, a federal prison. I said, okay. He said, and I'm having a hard time getting a job. Can I work with you? I said, well, come by and visit and let's talk about it. And we had a few conversations, but because of his record, there were certain jobs that I have that he just could not do for me.
Right, because you do a lot of government work.
Yes. Yeah. So, as much as I want to help him, I couldn't in that particular case, but maybe somebody else or maybe one of his children could come to me and I could put them to work or I could put them in a training program. So, sometimes it seems glamorous, but they're real life realities that you have to deal with.
Wow. Well, this kind of brings me to a point that I want to talk to you about. You do seem very civic minded. Just looking at your bio, you have a strong line or strain of, civic, engagement. And I assume you get that from your dad.
Well, partially because, again, my dad was in politics. He was an elected official. So we understand as a family the commitment to understanding the political process, being involved in the political process, and holding our elected officials accountable. And so that can lead to good outcomes, and that can also lead to not so good outcomes because the politicians, they have to be responsive to their constituents. But in today's political environment, they're often beholden to the people who spend the most money with them. So, there's that dichotomy that the politicians deal with. So they're often hearing from the people who give them money, and small business owners like me have to give them a balanced approach, a balanced view of what's going on. Because it's easy to say, oh, I think everybody should have health care. I think that people should have health care too. The question is, how do you pay for it? Who pays for it? And it's easy to say, well, these big corporations have all this money. They should pay for it. Yeah, but not every corporation is a big corporation. And more than half of the jobs created in this country are created by small businesses.
Yes.
And small businesses have fewer than 4 employees. So if you're going to push the burden of the cost of things like health insurance and other benefits, which I'm not saying that people shouldn't have. It's just we need to have an equitable system of
Yes. How to accomplish
finance the
that.
program. And so those are difficult conversations that we have to have, but it's important that business owners have those conversations with their elected officials, because too often the electeds don't talk to the business owners, they talk to the lobbyists.
Absolutely. So I see that you also recently testified to the House of Representatives Small Business Committee. How did that go? What were you trying to accomplish, and how did it go?
So the visit to the House Small Business Committee was as a follow up to the 10,000 Small Business Alumni Summit.
Okay.
Because the summit focused on how do we engage and energize the small business owners so that they can continue to grow their business. And then since we were in Washington, D.C., how do we engage and begin dialogue with the elected officials in the House and in the Senate so that they can understand the challenges small businesses face and that they can address those issues to help us be able to continue to grow our businesses, continue to create the jobs that this nation needs. And so I spoke in support of some of the research that the Goldman Sachs investment research team had conducted. Mm-hmm. And it's very amazing research. At first I was kind of blown away, like, why would this big bank do research on small business? But mm-hmm. It makes sense because small business really is the engine that drives our nation.
Yes.
And if we don't invest in our small businesses, then the overall economy of the United States will be in trouble.
Yes.
And so the economist, the key investment researcher, he presented to the data as to some of the steps Congress could take to help small businesses in terms of access to resources like capital, in terms of potentially creating training credits for small businesses, in terms of small businesses creating the jobs that large corporations don't create. And so I was just there to share my story, to talk about Johnson Security and the success we had, as well as to talk about the success that I've had. My husband and I have started another business called The Soapbox. It's a laundromat based in the Brooklyn neighborhood where we live. Mm-hmm. And it's a second generation business that we acquired from his father and his uncles. So we've been able to do some of the same things, but just in a different space. Mm-hmm. And so I was just testifying to Congress about some of the challenges that we've had, as well as some of the successes that we have, because for the most part, I don't think they understand small business.
Exactly.
So we're just trying to paint a picture for them.
Yeah, I thought that was the most, amazing part of the Alumni Summit. The part that hit me the most was some of the statistics they educated us on, that small businesses employ average around 60% of the American workforce. That I didn't know. And that, it's clear to me as running my own business that we have specific needs that are different from major corporate needs. And if they don't hear from the small business community, we'll never get our needs addressed. They're always going to be focused on large national corporate, what they're lobbying for, what's in their best interest. So I thought it was very powerful that Goldman Sachs put this, basically our lobby together to be able to talk to our senators and our legislators and express what we need.
It was very important to do that because I think small business owners get so caught up in the day-to-day operations of their businesses.
Absolutely.
That they forget about the other outreach piece that they need to do. So, for example, I met with about 7 other local business owners and our local congressman while we were in D.C. at Capitol Hill. And so today we have a follow-up meeting with his district office.
Oh, nice.
So that we can connect the dots for them and that we can continue to make sure that we're advocating on our own behalf, because the large corporations, they have lobbyists who do that for them. So we have to lobby on our own behalf because we don't have the same resources in many instances.
So share with the audience some of the unique needs that you feel that small businesses have that are so very different from corporate entities.
So, with respect to access to capital, I think that's a very important place because if you think of how a large corporation goes out and gets money, right? They can go
Yes.
to the public markets. So, say for example, if they sell stock or do an IPO, most small businesses aren't going to do that, right? If a large corporation goes and asks for a bank loan, that bank loan is based on the business's credit worthiness, not on the individual owner's credit worthiness. If I
Absolutely.
go to get a loan for my business, they're looking at my FICO score. They're looking at what assets I hold, which are going to be significantly less than what a corporation has. So they try to say that it's a level playing field, but it's
It's
anything but
totally
level.
not. Yeah, and I mean, we can stop right there and discuss this because I have my personal, experience recently with this issue. In my business, we've been in business for 17 years. Your business has been around for 56 years. And they're still pulling, Jessica, your personal credit report in order to give your business credit, which I think is insane. It makes no sense at all.
It doesn't, and it's like it's a double standard, right?
Yes.
Because they try to use the excuse, well, small businesses fail more often than large corporations, and it's not that that's the case. It's that when small businesses don't pay back a loan, they don't know the right questions to ask. They don't have the same rich uncles or business partners they can go to
To
get a
raise the
loan.
capital.
Right. The bank will say to a large corporation, "Oh, do you need a longer payment term? Do you need more money to get the money to pay back, or what can we do to make this work?" But with a small business, they're like, "Oh, sorry,
Yeah, the
sorry,
term is
Charlie,
due. We need the money. Yes.
right? No, let me come take your house. Let me take all your retirement savings, whatever you have left. And how many children do you have? I'm gonna take each of your kids." So
Totally
it's
different.
double standard when it comes to small business lending and access to capital for small businesses.
Well, I want to say thank you for that, for carrying on and taking the next step, because that was a part of our mantle that we took on as a part of Alumni Summit, is to leave the summit and actually take on and further our engagement with our legislators. Don't let it stop in DC when we were there in February, but to keep moving forward with communicating with our legislators. So it sounds like you're already working on that and carrying it forward. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. And I encourage anyone who's in business to do the same. Or even if you're not in business, I encourage you to know who your elected officials are, because all politics at the end of the day are local. And for many people, many communities, and many organizations, the current administration is not working in our favor. So we need to make sure that somebody understands our needs and our interests and is lobbying or advocating on our behalf. And we're our own biggest advocates.
Yes, we have to make sure our voice is being heard, for sure.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you next, what you touched upon this a little bit, but we didn't get into it any further than you making a comment about your leadership style. What is your leadership style, Jessica?
Oh, so if I had to describe my leadership style, it's like Tracy Ellis Ross leadership style. Like at any moment in time, the music comes on and I'm going to start dancing. And like that's how I lead. I lead full of life, full of energy, but I'm also real. And so I want to bring out the best in everybody, bring out their energy, tap into their music source so that they can dance to the music that's going to help them be most successful and perform at a high level. And I do that by trying to pour into people. But if I see opportunities for teaching and coaching and training, doing that. And if I can't do it myself, pointing them in the direction of other resources that will make them stronger in areas where they can grow. And what I say with respect to Johnson Security is my dream. It's nobody else's dream. So I don't anticipate that anyone who joins our firm is going to be here for life. I'm the only one who has to be here for life. But as long as in the time that someone works with me or works for me, they're growing, they're learning more, and they're better than when they walk through our doors, then I don't owe them anything at the end, and they don't owe me anything but to be the best them they can be.
Right. So you're actually creating future leaders. You're hoping that they leave under your leadership and start other, leadership opportunities for other people. You're sowing
That's what I would
seeds.
like. But there's a dearth of there's plenty of opportunities for leadership. It's just not a lot of people stepping up to be leaders. What I found is that many people, like one of the things that to me defines a leader versus someone who's not a leader is someone who's willing to make choices, someone who's willing to execute on those choices, and then someone who's willing to be responsible for those choices. And in our society, we don't encourage people to make choices. We give the perception of choices and decisions, but we don't really encourage people to take the steps to make decisions. And so, a simple example would be like you go to McDonald's and they ask you, do you want to supersize or not? Right? That seems like it's a real decision, but it's not. It's a perception of the decision because they're going to give you a big bag anyway, and it's just a matter of what size fries you want.
Right.
A real decision would be like, oh, okay, am I going to go to McDonald's or am I going to see how do I start a new business that's going to knock McDonald's off its block? Or how do I offer a healthy food alternative in my space? Or how do I go someplace and feed my body with something that's nutritious so that I can be empowered and have enough energy so I can tackle whatever giant awaits me? So that's more of a leadership track than supersize versus non-supersize. And so what I challenge my team to do is I try to put them in a position where they have to make decisions, because the more you make decisions, the better you get in the decision-making process. Not to say that you're always going to be right, but you figure out your own rubric, like what's going to work and what's not going to work.
Right. So you're not a micromanager. You're like, you make the decision and we're going to walk through. If there's something that does not come out the way we want, we're going to walk through and decide, learn a lesson from that.
That's well said. Yes. Like I prefer not to micromanage, but there's people that just want to be micromanaged. They say they don't, but they want to.
They want it.
I don't have time for that. I got to micromanage myself.
Right. So how do you pick people who you feel will be, leaders that can take the ball and run with it, that you don't have to actually, hold their hands? Is there a process that you go through to make sure you're getting the right people in there that really could flourish under your leadership style? Because that's important.
I can't say that I'm the best person when it comes to selecting talent, but I do believe that everybody is talented in some areas. Mm-hmm. It's just people respond to different styles and people respond to different environments. So I try to be very sensitive to the individual, their personality and what their needs are, and see how well I can work with that. And, sometimes I can be successful and other times I can't. And the times when I can't be successful, I have to put my pride to the side and say, hey, you didn't win.
Yes.
Sometimes you win. This one you didn't win on. So have a conversation with that person, a real conversation, to see what's the best path to move forward, because how you're doing it is not working and how they're responding is not working. And, sometimes people, once you put it to them like that, it's very straightforward, like this isn't working. What do we need to do differently? They can't communicate how you need to train them or how you need to lead them. But they can be honest with themselves and realize when it's not working. So I'd say more often than not, I'm not good in the identifying the talent, but I do have the patience and the faith, and prayerfully we can get to a point where it works for that person, it works for me, it works for the organization. And when it doesn't, to be honest and say, you know what, let's part ways, shake hands. When we see each other in the street, we can be cordial.
Right. Yeah, you don't want to beat people down. If it's not a good fit, it's best to just let them go. Yes. So what is next for Jessica? I mean, first of all, I want to thank you for being such an amazing star and making me so proud. I didn't even know you, but I was so proud of you when you were on stage at Goldman Sachs. I was like, wow, she's doing it. Yeah, you were great.
When I met you, I feel like you're my friend in my head. Like, I feel like we've been friends forever.
Right. We had a great connection, right?
We just haven't met face to face yet.
Yeah. And I can tell the audience that we met through Women's Business Council. We had a summit and salute here in Dallas, Texas. And that was the first time we were actually able to engage each other and meet each other face to face. But you were my friend in my head. So, hey, I'd already met you, I guess. So what is next for Jessica? What's on the horizon for the rest of 2018?
Wow, that's an awesome question. So earlier in the year, I decided we were going to slow down in terms of new business development because we've had significant growth spurts in the 10 years that I've been running the business. So because this represents 10 years, it's a good point for me to press the pause button and reflect how we got here from 2008.
Wow.
So how we managed through the financial crisis, how we managed through the pain and the trauma of losing my dad, how I personally managed through the pain and the trauma of losing my hearing, because I was not taking care of my temple. And while I was yet trying to run the business, I had another job and I let my body get run down. And as a result, I lost my hearing in my left ear.
Oh, wow.
So, we've been through a lot of ups and downs in the past 10 years. And so before I make any significant decisions about what the next year or the next 10 years looks like, I want to just reflect on how we got to this point. I'm so excited because of the success of the 10,000 Small Businesses Alumni Summit, because it allowed me to plug in with the alumni network, right? So it's great to be affiliated with Goldman Sachs. The content of the curriculum was wonderful, but at the core, what I love best about the program is the other scholars.
Yes.
And seeing other successful business owners, learning from them, making genuine friendship with people like you.
Yes.
And so many other beautiful people. That's really what makes a difference. So the next few months, it'll be a period of reflection. And then October will have been 10 years since my dad passed. And at that time, I think I'll be ready to turn the switch back on and go, as we say here, balls to the wall.
Balls to the wall. That's my favorite word to say. To a turn too. Wow.
to take on the next level of growth. And because of where we are in terms of our revenues, we're starting to get more attention from some of our competitors, and the level of hate is high.
Wow.
If at no point in business before, I really feel like they're coming for me, and so we have to be very strategic and very prayerful about how we move forward. Because if we make a wrong move, it may mean casualties with jobs, casualties in terms of contracts. But I also think that if we're slow and steady, we can position ourselves to grow exponentially over the next few years.
Yeah, I'm a big advocate of setting the pause button, hitting the pause button, and really reflect and do almost like a State of the Union. You have to figure out where you've gone. You have to figure out where you are in order to move forward. And I also love that you talked about strategy, putting down a strategy, pen to paper, old school, write out a strategy before you make the next move. So I think that's great that's what your 2018 is going to be focused on.
And I have some very specific ideas, and I'll share them with you offline, but I know that my competitors, they follow everything
that you do. Oh, yeah. They're listening to us. Hi, competitors.
Podcast and be like, oh, she said she's going to do this. Let's cut it off at the point.
Yeah, you are. I mean, you're definitely moving to another threshold, another level in business, which is why I wanted to have you on. So yeah, you're going to be dealing with a whole new level of business challenges like competition. You can go along and just, have your head down and focused on your business and not really, looking at the landscape, but people are watching you. I've learned that recently. Your competitors are watching you, even though you may not be watching them, they're paying attention to you. So now they're just, I guess in your case, they're starting to kind of, I guess, get a little louder.
Yes. We had the opportunity to go to the White House last year and meet with the president during Women's History Month. He had a small panel of women business owners to talk about how the administration and the SBA could support women-owned businesses. And a few months later, I had attended a pre-bid conference for an airport project. And out of maybe about 40 people in the room, there were 8 people of color and 3 women. Mm-hmm. And as I walk into the room, I hear one of my competitors scream from across the room, "Hey, Jessica, I saw you on the news next to the president." Now, taking that statement by itself, it really didn't mean anything. Mm-hmm. But he was saying it in a very unflattering way, as if, like he was not
put you on a spot.
Me down. I was like, and I said, yes, that was me. So you trying to put me down, but you just told everybody that, number one, I was on TV, and number two, I was on TV with the president. So now these people that don't know me, you've raised their antenna and they want to know, who is this woman? And you made yourself look like an idiot in the process. So, like you said, if you keep your head down and focus, folks are watching.
Yes.
You have to be able to maneuver around their distractions and the traps that they set, and then watch them fall into their own traps.
Absolutely. You have to also keep in mind your original mission and vision. That's so important. Hold to your vision for your business, and the rest will fall into place. Play your game, stay in your lane, and the puzzle pieces are going to fall in front of you, and everything's going to work out.
That's so true. That's so true. And that's so been our experience. And it's been a beautiful ride. So we're just looking to see what happens next.
Yes, I'm excited to see what's going to happen next for Jessica. Thank you so much, Jessica. This has been great. I think I've learned so much about your background and your history. This was amazing.
Well, I thank you for giving me a platform to share this information with you. I hope that I've encouraged someone. I look forward to hearing from some of the future leaders that you have featured on the podcast. And I look forward to your continued success. And I know that you're going to continue to do it. So thank you for being so fabulous, my friend.
Awesome. Thank you, Jessica. To learn more about Johnson Security Bureau and to learn more about our fabulous guest leader, Jessica Johnson Cope, visit her online at johnsonsecuritybureau.com, or her Twitter handle is JSB Inc. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a comment on iTunes or Google Play or any other podcast platform.
You're listening to RNCN, the digital destination for premium talk radio.